Cultural heritage is the legacy of physical artifacts and intangible attributes of a group or society that is inherited from past generations. Heritage is a product of selection by society. Sadly, the more developed societies become, the greater the possibility of relinquishing the essence of culture. And this has been the case with St. Lucia's two flower festivals, now relegated to rural communities which are struggling to pass on the mantle to a younger, less interested generation. The United Nations designated 2012 as the Year of Cooperatives and charged them with preserving indigenous culture. The Labrie Cooperative Credit Union heeded the call and injected financial fertilizer and extension support into the flower festivals. But how many St. Lucians know the full history, story, and cultural significance of our two flower festivals? How many know why the intense rivalry from slavery days until today? How many know the similarities and differences between La Marguerite and La Rose? And what, if anything, has central government done to preserve and expand the flower festivals? In this episode, we dissect the petals of the La Marguerite flower. The chantwells sing some tunes. The archbishop conducts a coronation ceremony. We go to church with a bunch of students and we leave the roses to fight for dumplings. In Untold Stories, La Marguerite, a class above the rest. Do you recognize this flower? What is the connection between this unassuming bud and the cultural identity of the Saint Lucian people? The Marguerite, a small magenta-colored globe flower, was selected over 2 centuries ago as the symbolic representation of the African slaves who staged a parody of elaborate pageantry reminiscent of the European court, which later would be coined the La Marguerite Festival or La Marguerite. The African slaves divided themselves into 2 flower factions, the Roses and the Marguerites, much to the displeasure of the colonial masters. The then Procureur du Roi or prosecutor urged that this secret society of slaves should be prohibited since it distracted them from their work and created a sense of identity within them that could have dangerous consequences. However, even under the threat of severe beatings, punishments, and even arrest, the slaves persisted with their festivals and Sunday dances, even selecting a king and other officials and inciting participants to contribute small sums of money for the benefit of the Flower Society.
Princess Phoebe and her flower girls.
Rather than succumb to the repression of the politically oppressive system, the flower festivals thrived. In fact, by the 1840s, La Rose and La Marguerite were so influential that everyone in society held allegiance to one group or another, and the rivalry was intense.
La was a tweet of chair, et la was a toi coupable. La was oui faisait manger poisson pour la petite Marguerite. La was oui faisait manger poisson pour la petite Marguerite.
So intense that the laboring population was split into rival camps to the point where laborers from the Anskanot and Fordor estates resigned their employment and moved to the neighboring Richford estate, reportedly because the latter was a La Rose stronghold. This sense of rivalry remains at the core of the La Marguerite Festival to this very day.
I remember there was a guy who had a shop who actually said all are welcome except Margaret. He actually had that and he was serious. See, some say Margaret, but I'm saying those were the days, my friend. That the adversity, I don't think we will continue. We need the adversary.
Each society has a patron saint on whose feast day the Grand Fête or festival is celebrated. For the Roses, it is the feast of Saint Rose de Lima on the 30th of August. And for the Margarets, it is that of Saint Margaret Anne à la Coque, held on the 17th of October annually. History has it that Saint Margaret Mary à la Coque was a French Roman Catholic visitation nun and mystic who was greatly recognized for her devotion to the Sacred Heart of Jesus. As a child, she was confined to her bed for 4 years with rheumatic fever. However, after making a vow to the Blessed Virgin Mary to consecrate her to religious life, Margaret instantly returned to perfect health. In keeping with her vow, she later became a nun and spent the rest of her life sharing the wonders of Jesus' love, revealed to her in her visions, with the whole world. Given the sanctified girl's name coincided with the virtuous Marguerite Flower, Highland celebrants adopted her as the patron saint of the Marguerite Society, and the feast day was created in her honor. The rivalry between the La Marguerite and La Rose Society has existed for centuries and stems primarily from the many differences between them. Although both flower societies commenced around the same time frame, the La Rose could boast of having Saint Rose de Lima, the first saint of the New World, and the patron saint of La Rose since 1671, whereas the traditions of La Rose were accurate. The La Marguerite was questionable. Saint Margaret Mary à la Coque, the patron saint of the La Marguerite Society, was only beatified in 1864, which left many to question whether they had another patron saint before that time period. Some are of the view that the actual patron saint of the La Marguerite Society is Saint Margaret Mary of Scotland, whose feast celebration is in the month of June. In fact, very old members of the La Marguerite Society remember that their feast was celebrated during that time period. This lack of certainty gave room to much ridicule by the Rose Society, further perpetuating the divide. The Roses pledged their allegiance to the rose flower, while the Margarets hailed the Marguerite flower as the most beautiful flower, as evident in their many songs and ballets.
Young frère Marguerite. They say it's Unpatrician frère Marguerite, but it's supposed to be Unpatrician frère La Rose. Because that is our song that was stolen, eh? The La Rose stole that song. Because Marguerite does not have any prickles. It's the La Rose that have prickles. Right. So this is our song. And it was stolen. The La Rose stole that song from us.
Si nous touchons, il caille piché nous. Si nous menons, il caille prisonnier.
Guidi daki hadi koteu soti Salvin vela de dombre chodi. Ale mona kini laide. Tout sau petan, tout sau pewe. La was ka fâché, la was ka côtoyer. C'est le wadlo qui ka fâché. Gridi daki, hadi koto soti, hadi salvin chashi, deye domwe la was. Dia kan dia pakai si celi mau di bawah pakai dia.
Ballets are special songs sung by the chantwell or lead singer of the group, usually a woman who sustains the spirit and tenor of the session, be it at the séance, one fête or festival day processional. These songs are usually composed by the chantwell and are designed to not only proclaim the virtue of the Marguerite Flower, but to ridicule their rival group as well.
Marguerite!
You're in the hospital, there are a couple nurses about. This must be a safe place for me to leave you.
I was told I had gallstones and a bladder infection. And all the while I was bleeding.
The same place they cut me, black blood flowing out of that, and it stinks so bad.
Emergency room and your surgery generally is a higher risk service given the nature of the service.
My boyfriend was there already waiting for me in the recovery room. And he told me, where's the baby? So I'm telling him the baby is looking like him and everything.
So I go down by the labor room. The lady tell me they have no baby there.
Oh, doctors in Saint Lucia are useless, and that one should lose their license. But a mistake or perceived mistake made is not necessary grounds for somebody to lose their license.
I could already see in the far corner that my daughter's just lying there on the table. And she's not lying there in a way that looks like there's life.
I called them to, she in the van, I need help. Either you'll take her in or call the ambulance, you understand? They didn't do nothing.
So why would the doctor just stay at home or in his comfort and ask the nurse to proceed to do this type of procedure?
I called on him, I said, Doc, please take your time.
But I give the assurance that we have very responsible physicians at this hospital, and they will not put patients at risk.
Yes, I just look at the laros and I do my own song. Just look at them and I make my own song. So when they see me, they're afraid. No? That's what they say.
Merkala la rose avec ma coumé moi. Les montés fin. Écoutez la mon de calé. Les montés sous, c'est lui mon de capouiller. Bon. Les toutes les va jamais prendre first prize à de bagaille la rose li. Un je lui dis ma coum. Ou kay mi prend d'achima sous fouiller et moi. Moi dis ma coum c'est ça va partir pour moi dis moi ça. Bah ça fait ça va pièce tout bonnement. Ou ça moi c'est Marguerite qui manière moi ça chanter la rose va ou mais les mots passer bon là oui pour faire moi honte pour dire bagaille. Il dit ma coum moi veux l'argent ça. Ma coum ngai do ça. Moi quand do ngai à côté ngai do plus. Moi te dis Marie. Mais les mots étaient là, mon ouais. Codine, demain les mots besoin moi ni moi aller. Moi aller où ça madame. Moi aller en veille te na mati moi aller. Les mots ils moi qui be fleur, moi tourner moi garder moi tourner. Moi lever fleur, moi lever vive la rose. Tout le monde moi dit comment tes habits, moi pas bouiller la rose. Comment toujours doux, moi pas j'aimer la rose. Quittez-moi douce, ma caille bouiller la rose. Toi t'as ouïvé, moi qu'à chercher la rose.
In many instances, the La Marguerites have been known to send spies into the Roses' gatherings to obtain information that would later form the satire for their songs. During the festivals, the Marguerites' verbal ridicule or mépris of their rival groups sometimes provoked hatred, which gave rise to dissension and even violence. These feuds were not just a form of hooliganism in support of one flower or patron saint or another. They also reflected the difference in social outlook.
We are more organized in the way we do our business. We have our food, we share our food. We don't fight for food. We don't quarrel for food. We don't have movie mess. Some of the Laros have movie mess. When they do their little festival, they're getting drunk. We're getting drunk. We know how to control ourselves. You know? They're getting drunk and they're not kind of dancing, remember? Dancing, whining. We're dancing in style.
The comparison is like night and day. You go to one of their festivals and you come to ours and it's like, okay, you see the differences. I'm sure some of the other members may have alluded to it. There's all the fighting for the food, the brash, loud, insensitive, day according to my auntie, kind of that. But we have this more principled approach to the whole thing. We want to make sure, yes, we sing, we dance, we enjoy ourselves, but with a level of discipline, a level of class.
When you look at the Marguerite festivals, you know, it's more polished, whereas with the La Rose, you know, you get the Lady thing and whatnot. The Marguerite Society, they're the exact opposite. And so maybe with my personality, I prefer to be aligned to them. With the Laros, they have their Domboy Laos, you know, which they do after. But with the Marguerite, you know, we have a formal lunch or dinner.
The Laos, c'est only Domboy. Chaque Domboy a c'est baoudé, c'est boyondé. O que vejo de que ela me avô couie, Vai lá tá lambea. Ora põe kudumbu. Vai poder.
The Margaretes are generally considered to be more culturally grounded and elite of the two flower societies. They are often described as socially reserved, devoted Catholics and serious parents who are adamant about ensuring that their children receive a solid and conventional education in the traditions of Marguerite. In general, the La Marguerite members could be said to belong to the middle to upper classes of Saint Lucian society. The Roses, on the other hand, were composed primarily of the laboring class and domestic servants. They actually built their reputation by their dramatic performances in speech, playing, dancing, singing and drinking, whereas the Margaretes focused more on discipline, tradition and the spirit of camaraderie. At La Rose meetings, also known as séances, held on Saturdays, all sorts of spontaneous activities could take place, but at a La Marguerite séance held on Sundays, members sought to structure the events and preferred events to unfold more calmly and with a greater level of decorum. Many of the people who are part of the La Marguerite Society hail from a long lineage of Marguerite followers. Others were captivated by the colors, the song, the dressing and dancing as children, or as adults when they accompanied friends and relatives to séances or the guanfete.
I was in love with the flower actually, and the songs, and that's what prompted me to join the Marguerite group.
My mother was a chantwell for La Rose, and I used to hear her singing in the house. I never write down any song. I don't know how it stayed in my head. And then I used to go to the séance. I mean, our Margaret séance. I didn't really. I said, if I know the songs, why can't I sing one day? And so I intended we would sing.
Similar to that of La Rose, the characters within the La Marguerite Festival are hierarchically structured to illustrate the colonial society with the king and queen as the head, followed by other dignitaries, social functionaries, and ending with people of lower economic standing. Unlike the Roses, however, there is no set structure in selecting the royal family. These roles are assigned based on interest, invitation, or socio-economic standing.
By the age of 18, there was this gentleman in the village who was the king at the time. And he was ill and he wanted to sort of retire from the whole thing. So he asked his wife, Miss Tipops, to ask me if I would be the king after him. I agreed, and then there was this big old coronation, and well, all pretend, of course. And from then I've been a king, and I'm still the king to this day, because a king doesn't abdicate unless he has reason to.
Upon selection, the royal family as well as the magistrate are sworn into office in a coronation ceremony where they pledge their loyalty to the Marguerite Society.
I, Marilyn John Markey, Chief Justice of the Library La Marguerite Society, together with your humble servants, will be faithful and true to you, our King and Queen, your heirs and successors, and cultural traditions. So help me, Saint Marguerite. Vive la Marguerite.
Do you accept the responsibility of training Princess Christine in the practice of the La Marguerite Society in accordance with its respective rules and customs?
I solemnly promise to do so.
Do you promise to bring her up to emulate the virtues and dignity of St. Margaret?
I solemnly promise to do so.
Then I admonish you to speak to Christine Tell her stories of St. Margaret's and the beauty of the Margaret Festival. Teach her Margaret songs and help her to grow and flourish into the person that God has called her to be.
Once these roles are adopted, their influence extends beyond the contours of the festival into real life, some maintaining their position for several years. When we return, a child beats a drum, a girl shakes a shak-shak, and later, the Margarets go to church.
I've not had to change bricks, I've not had to change oil.
When you put that on, you don't even have to press your brake anymore.
Myth number one, that this vehicle is not powerful enough because of our hills. I can tell you, I can line up with the best of them, and they won't have the best of me.
And you're hypocritical in that you have batteries to say, hey, I'm not so bad on the environment because I have some batteries as well. As lead technician, your take.
This hybrid and EV thing, the truth is, it can kill you.
And a way for the shipping companies to price gouge. What would you say?
In North America, there are tax credits.
The electricity company in Saint Lucia has crippled the industry. What would you say? Working behind the scenes is the Mama or Papa Marguerite, a central character unique to the Margaret Festival. The members with these roles are usually the group leaders as they steer the society and festival throughout the year, handling the financial and organizational business of the flower group.
King more or less helps to keep order and gives the Mama Margaret support. As the organizer, she has a lot of things to do, and my role is more or less to get people to toe the line, to follow, to keep to their roles, do what they are supposed to do. And I'm also supposed to assist in sometimes procuring funds and that kind of thing.
King. You cannot arrest the king. He has diplomatic immunity. Impeachment.
The magistrate and police officers ensure that law and order is maintained at every gathering, and misdemeanors are fined as a means of raising funds for the group's activities. Other social functionaries such as doctors, lawyers, and the clerical hierarchy dramatize their roles in grand style during the street parade on the day of the Gouan Fête. The element of role performance or masquerading is at the core of the La Marguerite Festival, and much time, effort and finances are devoted to ensuring that all preparations are in order for the grand day, from decorating the hall and arranging costumes to sourcing musicians and preparation of the great feast. Like the roses, preparations for the La Marguerite Festival starts months before the actual feast day on October 17th. In fact, as a form of courtesy to the roses, the Marguerite celebration only commences after the roses have completed their Grand Fête on August 30th. This may be partly due to the dual membership and participation of many roses in the Marguerite Society.
If you attend a séance, you would be surprised to find some of the very same people who are La Rose. When it comes to Marguerite, they are also a Marguerite, you know. But not me. I am a Marguerite. I am not a Rose. I may attend to, you know, help them in their fundraising, but to attend their séances.
During the preparation period, the Marguerites gather at a community hall, particularly on weekends, to hold séances, which are singing and dancing sessions. These séances are also used to rehearse songs and raise funds for the grand performance on the feast day. The songs and dance envelop all ages. Non-members are welcome to attend the séances as long as they do not disturb the proceedings. If members or non-society members portray behaviors such as disrupting the meetings or engaging in unacceptable dancing, they are detained by the police officers and brought before the judge, who fines them. If they are unable to pay the set amount, they may gain assistance from other members. These payments and fines are means to raise funds to cover the expenses of the Grand Fête. On the actual day of the festival, all members of the Marguerite Society assemble dressed in the fineries of their respective roles, the royal family being the most elaborate and adorned in the colors blue, purple, white and green. And then they proceed to the church for a special service before hitting the streets for the culminating street masquerade in honor of their saint. After the parade, all roads lead back to the hall for their lavish feast. The relationship between the flower societies and the church has not always been a pleasant one. Between 1840 and 1860, the church enthusiastically embraced the flower societies, since it was the money raised by them during their various séances that built and extended Catholic churches island-wide. In fact, there is scarcely a parish on island that doesn't owe the erection of its church wholly or in part to the support and funding of the flower societies. However, after nearly 20 years of fetting and feuding in the name of La Rose and La Marguerite, Monsignor Etheldredge, the apostolic administrator of Port of Spain with jurisdiction over Saint Lucia, judged that the flower society's extravagance, quarreling, and rioting had gone too far. So he excommunicated them both in 1860. Members of the Catholic faith were forbidden from joining or remaining in them. Regardless of this, the flower societies remained active, and over time, the once violent rivalry which existed between the Marguerites and the Roses declined into a more amicable one. A new wave of nationalism and cultural awareness in Saint Lucia deemed the flower festivals like La Marguerite unique to Saint Lucian culture and a core national identity. As a result, the relationship between the church and the flower societies was fully restored, and the church renewed its efforts to work more closely with the Marguerite congregation, providing them with a date and venue to hold their celebrations, as well as directives that foster a deeper sense of unity amongst the societies. With the erosion of time, the number of Marguerite groups has significantly decreased, and today it is relegated to the confines of rural communities. The Marguerites point to the culprit.
I would lay the blame wholly and squarely at the foot of the Cultural Development Foundation. To me, they are the ones who, that should be their way of promoting. It's part of culture. It should be their way of promoting that art form. Unfortunately, this has not happened.
I claim to put you in jail for 2 years. What is
CDF does help in putting together the Guan Fete and other little things. But I find the culture is, the groups are treated as a convenient something. When it is convenient to use them, they use them. During the year, there should be other opportunities given to both groups to market it.
Coming up, the invasion of Rodney Bay. A credit union saves the day. And CDF sings a familiar tune.
We were not the only ones flying arms in Tehran. It was not until one of the planes got shot down.
Come on, Sir John is dead, you can tell us now.
It went on and we posed a major threat to Riyadh.
We said, okay, this is it.
Riyadh got everything basically for free from the governments of the region that they were flying for.
Nobody else's money, it's our money.
Agreed to seek the approval of Parliament to guarantee a loan of $4 million to Helen Air. I want to make it quite clear to Helen Air. At the first signs of trouble or difficulty, that land will be put to good social use.
Nobody else. Rick will.
I want you to strike that.
No, it's his political agenda.
Could you tell us who valued that land?
After politically.
Mario, let me tell you. I didn't sleep for many months.
The government, through the Cultural Development Foundation, provides an annual subvention to the societies to defer some of the costs in organizing the festivals.
And I want to say especially again to CDF, Kite Marguerite Flower, Kite Kiltino West Viva Secrecy.
However, despite the attempts of recent governments and cultural institutions within society to revive the flower societies, their biggest challenge remains that of continuity.
This is where CDF comes in. We want to ensure that we do training, which of course is our mandate, in group dynamics. So the older persons in the festival understand that it's a festival, you love it, but it's not yours to keep. It's not yours to go to the great beyond with. It is yours to pass on, to ensure that the work that you did carries on.
The CDF also initiated the celebration of the La Marguerite Festival in schools, and to revitalize interest in the flower festivals in the main urban district, the Guan Séance and Guan Spectacle, which represents an amalgamation of all the various groups in a unified séance, is staged in Rodney Bay.
On the Guan Fête Day, we assist with the logistical needs. We ensure that we organize with the church services with them. We ensure that we create that sort of relationship with the CDF, that they don't think that they're doing it alone, that an agency is behind them, ensuring that we allow or create that platform to allow the festival to thrive and to continue on.
Many Marguerites lament their inability to attract and keep the youth even as their older members are becoming frail and inactive.
The young people actually don't want to join the Marguerite group. It's the older folk. They think it's grassroots people business, not for the young generation. And so you find it difficult for the young people to join the group. But actually, I was very instrumental in getting quite a number of young persons joining the group. And most of them are still there.
To preserve them, to pass them on from generation to generation.
At the start of 2000, there was a yearning amongst Caribbean nations to emerge from the weight of their colonial legacy and to establish a national identity with a particular focus on the resurgence of traditional or folk culture. Consequently, the savior of the La Marguerite Society would arrive in 2012 from a novel initiative of the United Nations, which was executed by a community credit union.
At that time, I was the president of the Library Credit Union. And incidentally, that year, 2012, it was International Year of Cooperatives. The United Nations had declared that year as the International Year of Cooperatives. And cooperatives globally were challenged to establish legacy projects. And so we decided, well, you know what, the festivals, the flower festivals in Library were sort of on their way out, you know, not much life in them. And so let us take advantage of that and, you know, sort of revive them. And this is why from 2012 they were rebranded. So the La Rose Society became the Library Credit Union La Rose Group and the Marguerite Library Credit Union Marguerite Group. So in 2012 we went through the formal, and for, I suppose, by way of education, it was one way of educating the populace. We got to see what an actual coronation was, because we had a new king and queen, and the Chief Justice was installed that year. So we had this formal ceremony at the Library Market. In 2014, we had a repertoire of songs, so there's a CD again by the Credit Union, a CD of La Rose and La Marguerite songs. 2015, we did a historical perspective of the La Marguerite Society. So we went back to find out who the queens, as far back as we could have gone, who were the queens, the kings, where were the different places in Library where seances were held. Our chant and chantwells, so we have this well documented. In 2016, we had a sort of ceremony, a formal ceremony to honor, because we recognized some of our members were aging, and we did citations. We honored 8 of them.
Additionally, the Library Cooperative Credit Union organized workshops on the flower festivals and other cultural forms for the youth, along with old society practitioners and new members during their annual summer camp. This has greatly helped revitalize interest in the group amongst the general public and especially the youth. The fertilization of the next generation of queens, judges, magistrates, police officers, and Nos Marguerites were today's faces, excited at the pageantry of the festival, which they have unknowingly been handed. For decades, the talk of La Marguerite's death seemed imminent. But here, doctors, nurses, soldiers, police officers, kings and queens have resuscitated cultural vigor into the new crop of members. And of course, with Saint Margaret Mary Alacoque and the music of the chantwells, the festival will forever remain an integral part of Saint Lucian culture. Vive la Marguerite!
Never been told. Could go on and on, the fool has never been told. Could go on and on, the fool has never been told. Could go on and on, the fool has never been